us. We have several people signed up, ready to go, so that we're just giving everyone a chance. So just make sure that your headphones are working, that your internet browser is up and live, and we have our panelists. They're all smiling, ready to go. We've got a red curtain. We can see Jodie and Nat. They have said that they're in Barbados, but they could be anywhere. There's a red curtain behind them. So they're about to describe some of the details. I think we're going to be very convinced and very jealous.
We are very jealous.
Where are you, Rachel? Where are you from at the moment?
I'm in Manchester.
Oh right, okay. So how's the heat? Has the heat wave hit Manchester?
It's not raining, so I'm happy.
Oh right. we've been praying for rain in London, I believe. And then I don't know if anyone's seen Nat and Jodie. There's the Commonwealth Games are going on in Glasgow, and Usain Bolt's been complaining about the weather. Say it wasn't as much as the London Olympics. Yeah.
Right, I didn't realise that. Yeah. Bit unplugged sometimes, but we're actually welcoming the rain as well, because it gets that humidity build up to that point of like, just give me rain. But we're getting some.
Right. So it's 6:30. In a couple of minutes, we're going to be beginning our webinar on portable careers and how to work while you travel. We're just allowing the attendees to come through here. So if you have just joined us, welcome. My name is Thomas Mason. I'm going to be hosting the webinar today. We've got a really great panel of guests, so I will introduce them in just a moment. And we're being waved at. We're being waved at. I believe that is Jodie. Jodie Thompson is a professional house sitter, so we'll be introducing her in just a second. And one half of Nat and Jodie, the professional house sitters. So they are saving on our internet costs by sharing a browser.
True.
Yeah, it's all about saving money, saving resources. So they are sharing from the top.
Yeah, become masters at it.
Right, I think we're ready to get started, everybody. So if you're just joining us, welcome. Welcome. My name is Thomas Mason. I work in marketing. I'm working on a project at the moment with one of our co-hosts, HouseSit Match. And we are delighted this afternoon, at least it's this afternoon in the UK, to welcome you to our webinar on portable careers, how to work while you travel. And we are very much travelling all over the world in this Google Hangout today. We have panellists from as far afield as Manchester, London, and in a second we will reveal the location of some of our other panellists who are sitting behind the red curtain. And there they are now. So we'll keep you waiting on that one. So just a bit of a big picture then to set the tone. What is a portable career other than a fantastic buzzword? I think this is the idea, and our host from the Career Break site in a minute is going to set this out in more detail. But this is the idea that if you do something whilst you're not in a formal job, it doesn't necessarily have to be, oh, my career has stopped. In fact, the world continues, and it can go from being a career break to a real career step. So the idea that travel and other things that we do outside of the 9-to-5 wheel are somehow a break from working life, it's really trying to spin that on its head and look at time spent traveling as a real investment in yourself and the overall life story. So we're looking, there's a few kind of top level questions for people joining the webinar today. So one is just, have you thought about taking a break in that professional career to try something new? And rather than it being, if it is travel that you do in your break, rather than that just being going from one plane to the next, one flight to the next, one country to the next, is there something that connects all of these experiences? And is there something that you could be learning while you go and you think about your next career step? There's a section on our webinar today, and we're going to be looking at how can you minimize costs while you're traveling. And we've got some real experts in cutting down on costs, living a more minimal lifestyle that isn't just about saving money, but actually about releasing yourself psychologically to enjoy these experiences, not be burdened down with everything that happens while you're traveling and while you're working. And then we're just going to introduce as well a particular method of a portable career that we are calling house sitting. So this is a real global growth industry that is estimated to be worth about £200 million when you look at all the people who are taking part. And there's actually 720,000 homes worldwide where people are inviting people into their homes, looking after people's homes. And again, we've got some real experts on the house sitting side of things. So I think, so just welcome everybody again to our webinar on portable careers, how to work while you travel. It's time now to introduce our panelists. I'm going to start by introducing, from the Career Break site, we have Rachel Morgan Trimmer. Rachel, if you'd like to give us a wave. Hello there. So Rachel is the director of the Career Break site. She's going to be talking to us in a moment about this whole concept of the portable career. I'm not sure if Rachel invented this phrase, but she's certainly going to bring it to life for us. And then we are also joined with a red curtain in the background from Nat Smith and Jodie Thompson. They are not just professional house sitters, but they're also founders of the HouseSitting Academy. And so they're going to tell us all about that. Nat and Jodie, first of all, though, could you just give us an indication of where you are in the world?
I feel like I should be pulling back the red curtain, and if I could actually show you the revealing of the palm trees and the hibiscus and bougainvillea. We're in Barbados.
Right.
But it's a little bit noisy outside.
So we didn't have the palm trees, unfortunately.
No, unfortunately not. We could be sitting around the pool drinking a cocktail.
Yeah.
Palm trees, but we won't tease again.
No.
It might just. Oh, that's very, very kind of you. Because I believe that we're the rest of us in the UK. Rachel, I believe, is in Manchester, where I'm informed it isn't raining. So that's exciting news. And then from House Match Towers, we have Lamia Walker. How are you, Lamia?
I'm very well. Hi, Wickham is very sunny today.
Yeah, it is. We were about to complain it's a bit muggy, about 26 degrees in London. But I think people in Barbados. We'll leave it there. So to set up this concept then of the portable career, I'd like to invite Rachel Morgan Trimmer to say a few words. Rachel, where did this phrase come from, portable career, and what does it mean?
I think the phrase portable career has been around for a little while, as more and more people are realising that you don't have to be tied to your desk or your office to work. So when we talk about working on a career break, one of the most traditional ways of doing it, of course, is to get a working holiday visa, which you can for Australia, New Zealand, Japan, the USA and Canada. But of course, one of the limits to a working holiday visa is your age, because most of them are limited to people under 30. In fact, Japan's is limited to people under 25. So other options for portable careers. You can work in Europe if you're British, of course, being an EU citizen, that you don't have the visa restrictions that other countries do. And another option for people who are a little bit older is TEFL, teaching English as a foreign language, because once you've got your TEFL qualification, it's much easier to go and get work in a wider variety of countries, places like China and so on. And normally the company that you do your TEFL course through, they can often help find you a job and help you with visas and so on. In fact, some actually guarantee a job when you graduate. And there are also programs by governments, such as South Korea, that actively recruit people with TEFL qualifications from this country and, will pay for your flights and accommodation and so on while you're teaching. And then, of course, there's seasonal work, which is very popular with career breakers, things like ski instructors, kite surfing, sailing, and so on. And there's, of course, working on boats as yacht crew if you're qualified to do that, because, of course, your travelling, your accommodation is part of your work.
Very portable, it's moving all the time. Yeah.
And then one of the newer things that we're seeing now is people who are kind of developing their own jobs, their own careers as they travel as a result of that travelling. So we're starting to see people working full-time on their blogs, and some journalists and photographers taking their work on the road and using their travel as their career. It is quite hard to make a living from blogging, but one of the good things about travel is that you don't, we'll see this later in the seminar, you don't actually need a lot of money to have a good life while you're traveling, particularly if you're in developing countries where the cost of living is very small. And if you're budgeting properly and planning your travel properly, you don't have to spend a lot of money. So you can find that the money you make from your blogging or your photography or your online journalism or whatever it might be is actually enough to keep you going.
Great. And how personally, Rachel, did you come to this industry or this concept of portable careers? How is your involvement in it being part of the trajectory of what you've done yourself?
Well, the way I did it was a little bit different, because I travelled on my career break and I didn't work at all, but I found the experience useful in setting up the business that I run now. And I'm still using things like the stories that I picked up from my career break, the tips that I've learned, the connections I've made, and even some of the photographs that I took. I can use all those on our blog, on the site, and for making connections with other people to get more content onto the site. And we're reaching out on Twitter now and on Facebook and talking to different people. And we find that, you know, building this community that started from my own career break is actually helping to fund and make viable my current career.
Great. So the site that you're talking about, I believe this is www.thecareerbreaksite.com. So if you just summarise what there is on offer there and why we would go there and what that's all about specifically.
Everything.
Oh, lovely.
It's everything you need to plan and organise your career break. So we have lots of career break options on there. So you can go there, you can look at volunteering, you can look at TEFL, working, travelling, whatever it might be. And there are ways of searching and finding the information that's specific to what you want to do. And then we have various bits about money, because obviously money is a big issue for career breakers. We have guides to things like career changes, which some people do, exactly what a sabbatical is, how to ask for a sabbatical if you plan to go back to work, and so on. And on the blog, there's a huge variety of advice, information, ideas. We have stories from other travellers, we have guest posts, and so on. And then we also have associated content from people like HouseSitMatch, where it's not actually a career break itself, but it's one of those really useful services or ideas that can help you get the most out of your career break.
Fantastic. So that's the concept then of career breaks. And as Rachel said, it doesn't necessarily just have to be something that you do in the context of a gap year when you're just about to go to college or afterwards. It's something where there are different opportunities to get involved in a career break at various stages through your life's journey. And we've got two very esteemed career breakers with us this afternoon, and they are currently in Barbados. They are called Nat Smith and Jodie Thompson. Perhaps they'd like to tell us which one is which. And they are professional house sitters and founders of the HouseSitting Academy. So Nat, would you like to give us a wave?
Hello.
There's Nat Smith.
Hello,
and then we have
Mum.
Jodie.
Hey, man. It's a Barbados joke, man.
Yeah. So other than talk of the palm trees, maybe Nat and Jodie, you could just give us a little bit of the context about where you found yourself in a career break. I think it was a couple of years ago, and how you went from there to what you're doing at the moment.
I think we made our career break into our actual lifestyle.
Right.
Yeah. Purely by default, really. It wasn't a planned thing by any means. We were living in Dubai at the time. I'd been called over for a job there, and we ended up starting a company to help Jodie with getting a visa and stuff. Very long story short, that went belly up, and we lost absolutely everything.
Right, so you were in a kind of forced situation where there'd been
a choice at that point, really.
So there was a bad situation in life,
so.
but you decided actually maybe that's the time to do something completely different, and that took you to house sitting, I believe. So what was the first house sit that you did?
Well, we had one booked in France when we were in Dubai, but we didn't want to wait that long until we left Dubai at the time, so we ended up applying for two in London. So we ended up getting those, and we headed over to London for a couple of weeks before we went to a bigger house sit in France, which was a 4-month house sit there. So that was really the start of our house sitting career, if you like, by default. And the more we did it, the more we realised just how much we absolutely loved it. This was something that we probably both dreamt of, travelling the world, but we had no idea how we were going to do that. And we really thought that we would have to save up like everybody else does, and
Sure.
that just wasn't an option for us at that time. We were in so much behind the eight ball so much that that wasn't going to happen. But it enabled us to actually travel and start this lifestyle now without having the money.
If I could just add to that, Thomas, it's quite funny. One of the best parts about coming from Australia is when you actually look at the map and you see just how far away that big old island is from anywhere else in the world. Sitting in Dubai and seeing that London was just a short hop away and Europe was just a short hop away, it's like, there's no way I'm doing 17 hours back to Australia. Let's go travelling now. So it's probably quite similar to Rachel's experience we've now, through the time, changed our careers or changed the focus of where we're putting our energy into starting our own business, and through that direct experience is now actually talking about house sitting through our work as well.
Well, what about, so you say you didn't want to go on a 17-hour flight back to Australia, I can understand that, but what about all your possessions, all your things? Where did they all go? So just wondering what happened with yes, it's great to be moving around the world, but did you have a lot of physical possessions that you needed to take care of or put into storage or discard?
That's been a process in itself, because having made the decision to leave Australia in the first place and going to Dubai, that was 11 boxes shipped. So 11 boxes and suitcases, etc. Because we were going to Dubai to start a new life, make our fortune, and all those wonderful promised land things that come with living in a place where there's no tax.
Oh yeah.
But of course that didn't work out. So when it all sort of crumbled and fell apart, we got rid of a lot of stuff that we had there. We still had a few personal heirloom type things at a friend's place in Australia, but there was no furniture or anything like that. All that had been let go of already. So we left Dubai with 2 bags each, weighing way too much, but we had arranged for our flight to not pay extra luggage, which was fantastic. And once we started house sitting, it was probably for the first at least 6 or 7 house sits, we were getting rid of about 10 kilos every trip. So a lot of our homeowners were given all sorts of wonderful gifts, like boxing gloves. Like, why you need to travel with boxing gloves, I don't know, but we did.
I'm good. Just as well you're in Barbados and I'm here in London.
So we're now down to just one bag, under the 50-pound limit, 23-kilo limit, and feels great on luggage. Very light and free.
And so when you say house sitting, what do you mean by that then? Does this involve looking after people's pets, just going in their houses? How does it usually work?
Generally, it will involve looking after somebody's pets. So a house sitter really comes in to look after the home, take over the running of the home, and looking after the pets if they have when the owner goes away. So they might be away for a week or 2, or it might be a whole year. They might have some career change that they need to go and make overseas or whatever, visit family or friends. And so a house sitter comes in to live in the house. So it might involve doing gardening, looking after the pool, collecting the mail, keeping in contact with the owner, that sort of thing.
So
but for us, it's all about the pets. So we choose house sits with pets personally, because that's our healing, our love, our children, adopting children, fostering type of experience for us.
So you don't see that as a chore, you actually see that as a positive part of the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been one of the greatest gifts, I think, for us to have the pets. And they've all got such different personalities. It's so amazing to actually meet them all and spend time with them.
And to a point, we actually had an organised break in New York City between our house sits. It was one of the very rare times that we had 2 weeks gap between house sitting assignments. And we were staying at Nat's brother's place. He'd given it up for us. He'd gone to stay with his girlfriend. And this house sit just came up randomly. It was only like 3 days out from when the people needed to go. So I don't know if they'd been left in the lurch or they just needed somebody, last-minute decision. And it was just across the park in Brooklyn, and it turned out to be 2 doors down from the New York City mayor. So it was a really nice part of Brooklyn. And so we gave up our free time, the whole sort of, I've got no responsibility for 2 weeks and really enjoy New York City. I said, let's just put it out there to these people. So we're just across the road. If you get stuck, we're here. And when we get over and meet these two dogs and live in this amazing part of town, it was like we couldn't have been it. It was like coming home, getting back to having our two dogs and walking them every day and enjoying the place.
Fantastic. So yes, like coming home. I think that's an interesting phrase. I think when we had a webinar a couple of weeks ago here with House Sit Match, we were joined by Rachel and Lamia, and I think Lamia, one of the phrases that came up in time and again was "live like a local." Does that resonate with your users at House Sit Match?
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the advantages above any other type of trip and discovering a country is being able to step into somebody's neighborhood shoes, walk the streets they walk, understand where the best little patisserie is in France, or the best grocers, or the best museum that no one's heard of, that kind of thing. It's just fantastic. And the owners of the house are usually more than happy to give you a guide, tell you, actually, if you walk to this hill, the view is fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's one of the ways I think that people really enjoy house sitting, is they can discover a new city or a new neighborhood in a way that they've never thought of before.
Right. And how personally then, Lamia, did you come to house sitting? What was your experience?
Well, for many years, I used to house sit without really calling it house sitting.
Right.
I would, for friends and relatives, wherever they were, either I or my own with my family, we'd go and look after the pets while they went somewhere else. So we had friends in Paris, they had a cat, we would go and look after the cat while they went to Spain. So there was a mutual benefit. And then when I had a corporate career, I would travel the world, and I would always arrange for other people to look after my home and my pets and so on. And when I decided that actually I was traveling far too much, I was traveling about 40 weeks in the year away from home, I decided I wanted to be professional, but location independent. And so bringing together my love of travel, my love of work and marketing, doing something I quite enjoyed, like house sitting, actually seemed to be a fantastic opportunity. So that's how it came about.
Right, and then so you went from having your own private network of trusted contacts and neighbours, maybe sometimes having to lean on the neighbours a little bit to get them to help you out, to actually creating, an online network. Is that right?
That's exactly right, yes. Yes, it's funny how you do lean on friends and relatives when you need someone to just step in and do things. So yes, actually, but if you talk to your network and your network talks to other networks, you suddenly have a group of people willing to help each other.
I think that's just as well, because if you think of it, you say you're in High Wycombe, and if you're Lamia's neighbour and Lamia's away for 40 weeks of the year, it's going to be a full-time job. So I think it really is good that you've brought in friends and relatives from all around the web.
You'd be surprised who comes to house sit for us. Actually, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's a good experience.
Australians coming. It's amazing.
Australians, well. Yeah, indeed. Well, we've got I don't know if we've got a couple of Australians here. Maybe they could help you out and vice versa.
We'll swap dates later.
Right, great. And then back to Rachel Morgan-Trimmer, director of the careerbreaksite.com. You were saying, Rachel, that one of the main challenges and also opportunities when you are on this career break is actually to look at your financial side of things. As Nat and Jodie said, sometimes the conception is that you have to save up for months and months and months. But you're saying actually, are there smarter ways to save money before you embark on this journey and then when you start?
Well, we found out that money is, not surprisingly, the number one concern of career breakers. Most people don't have pots of money to, sitting around. And although there are ways to save money, there are things like the flights, and you might need some equipment, or even just a decent pair of shoes and a decent bag can end up costing quite a lot of money. Yeah. So one of the things we advise is obviously budgeting and planning properly can save you tons of money. Things like taking membership cards for hostels if you're staying in hostels, or looking at house sitting and finding out ways where you can stay for free, and so on. Just doing a bit of research, or a lot of research in some cases, to find ways of saving money as you go. Things like guidebooks can be very helpful in giving you a guide price for how much you're likely to spend per day while you're traveling.
Yeah. Okay. Now, Nat and Jodie, I think you did some really interesting research actually on what it costs to be a house sitter versus what it costs to rent an apartment anywhere in the world. And actually, I think, well, maybe if you can tell us a bit more, but the cost savings were pretty dramatic when you added them all up. Maybe you can just tell us a bit more about the methodology of that and how you're currently saving money.
Yeah, it actually came about because there were so many assumptions being made because we did start a blog, and we have our friends and family and a bit of a social media network as well. And it was more these assumptions that, oh, well, it's fine for you to be traveling the world, you must be loaded or, earn so much money online, all these things. So I was like, okay, no, let me break this down, because we didn't earn any income at all and just went backwards until zero and then minus zero for nearly 2 years. So the costs involved, when we had to go and earn a bit of money and whatever, didn't need to be a lot. So when I broke it all down, it came down to being that the rent we were paying in our one-bedroom apartment in Dubai was the equivalent of, say, £300 is that like, say, £200 a week? So over the year, that's like, so that's like $16,000 for the year. So when I sat down at our 1 year anniversary of house sitting, of which we'd had 10 months back to back through 7 different countries on 3 different continents, and said, right, well, what replaces rent? Well, at the end of the day, what replaces rent is just the flights and buses and, your transport, because you still need to buy groceries. So I broke it down in the groceries element as well, because some of the countries that were really cheap to live in were surprising, and the others were more expensive than we thought.
Yeah.
So the breakdown came to being that the 2 of us flew through all those different areas in 1 year. The total cost of our flights, buses, transfers was $5,200. So you could pretty much say it was a third of our annual rent. So then when we actually looked at the aspect of, we didn't have an option to be a traveller. Like, we didn't have the option to pay for hotels or even be eating out and having meals out. So having a kitchen in all of our house sits, of course, meant we were just buying groceries. And one of the most surprising places for really cheap groceries was actually Southwest France. We were able to live, the 2 of us, eating chocolate and drinking French wine. Like, we weren't being super cheap or anything, but it was most definitely, it was well under €150 a week that we were spending there. Now, I guess for 2 of us to buy our groceries and eat and drink wine and eat cheese and all that. So the most expensive was actually Costa Rica in Central America. We kind of had this belief that Central America was going to be really cheap. But with the influx of expats there over the last couple of years, and the area that we were in, it's spreading throughout the whole country, but you can pretty much say that anywhere where the tourists go, they've got tourist programs. And Costa Rica was more expensive than France, and I would say it was probably even more expensive than living in London.
Right, that's
grocery-wise. Groceries, I'm talking about.
I think it'd be very interesting. I'm sure our viewers will be interested in some sort of breakdown of the top 10 or 20 countries that you found by cost. I think that's really useful insider info. And this all sounds very well for Nat and Jodie, but I'm just wondering, Lamia, what happens then? How do people, in your experience, on one extreme you've got the professional house sitters doing all this all the time, and I guess that's really good if you've got if you've got from one house sit to the next, they're all set up. But what if people are struggling to kind of get on that house sitting ladder? Is it expensive to join the network to find these people, and is it possible to kind of go from one to the other?
I think it is. It depends which network you join, of course, as to how expensive it is. But, with our site, it's only £35 a year for a small ad. And I think you can prepare by getting some references, getting a police check. And the references are not just house-sitting references. There can be personal references, people who know you, professional references, people who've worked with you. I think homeowners like to see the whole person. They like to get familiar with the whole person. That's the most important thing. You can have all the documentation you want, but if they Skype you and they don't like you, that's another matter. So I think become familiar with each other. That's a good tip. The other thing is that it's not expensive to travel if you plan ahead, just like Rachel was saying. And actually, there are certain deals you can make with credit cards. There are special offers. You know, you really, again, need to do some good research in terms of special offers available. The other thing is, in terms of expense, if you compare it to rent, just as Nat and Jodie were saying, rent, for example, in Perth, Western Australia, is extortionate. A very good friend of mine house sat for a year and saved between $35,000 and $37,000, she estimated, in rent alone. That's not without utilities, without any other costs. That's just incredible. Right. So against that saving, any other additional costs really seem to be quite manageable.
Right. So what you're saying is there's maybe a small cost to join a network like HouseSit Match, but that's considerably less than paying a professional pet sitter or something like that. And when you add it all up, it's pretty small, and actually you get more information back, you think?
It gives you lots of choice. And yes, there's an enormous amount of information. The community is just like Nat and Jodie's online. It's a very good community, and I highly recommend it. And even within ours, the blog and the hints and tips pages, there's a lot of information there given by real house sitters who travel the world.
Right. So just to take us through, we're about halfway through our webinar today on portable careers. We've got a few questions coming in from people around the world who've joined us. I'm going to go through some of those and put them to the panel. If you do have a question, please tap away. You may have sent one. If you sent one ahead, that's great. If not, tap away. There's a little box on the side of your screen, and we're going to do a round robin, and we're going to get those through to the panel. Also, while we've got Lamia online, Lamia is going to tell us a little bit about a promotion that we're running exclusively today for people joining HouseSit Match, and also looking for a bit of extra expertise from Nat and Jodie. There's a special coupon code, I believe, Lamia. Can you just run us through that?
Yes, if you've managed to resist joining HouseSit Match to date, well, resist no longer. There is a 20% off coupon. So right. If you type in webinar-20, and we'll be putting that on the site in a minute, when you register, you'll get 20% off any paid registration prices. So that's webinar-20.
Right.
Thomas,
Great.
I just have something that's sort of buzzing me at the moment. There's been different people that have mentioned through our community that is finally mentioned there is, you know, it's like, oh, why should I have to pay to register as a house sitter? Why should I do this? Or, you know, how much is it? I guarantee you that it is the best investment ever to invest into a house sitting platform with HouseSit Match, particularly because what you're paying is less than, let's go cheap and say hostels. It's less than 2 nights in a hostel. You know, if you go to the whole top end. And the premium membership with HouseSit Match, don't even consider the lower ones. If you are serious about this, you need to have a video on your profile. That has been our key to getting back-to-back house sits continually for the last 18 months. And if you don't have a video, you're not even getting that first look in as such. It is an immediate connection point. So it's to me, it's a no-brainer. If you get to have one house sit a year, even if it was only for 1 week, you've absolutely paid for your membership time and time over.
Great. So it sounds like the money side of things is something with planning that you can work in. We're now going to go some questions. I've got one for Rachel first. Rachel of the careerbreaksite.com. And this is from Jack in Guildford, Rachel. Jack would like to know, he says, I need a change in my job, but I probably also need a change in my life. I didn't take a gap year before or after uni. The nurse has caught up with me and I just want time out. But I don't want to give all the credit I've built in my career away. So he's saying, I've been seriously thinking about how to take a sideways step and work abroad without it completely derailing the career he's built up. He says his job is in marketing and PR, and are there any mid-career break opportunities that might be possible for someone like me?
Well, first of all, he's not alone. We get tons and tons of inquiries just like that. People mid-career, they want something different, not quite sure what they want to do, and obviously they've got concerns about their career and money and whatever it might be. So the first thing I can reassure. Did you say his name was Jack?
Yes.
The first thing I can reassure Jack about is that some time out of your day job doesn't necessarily mean you're losing credit in it, and it's not time off. If you spend, weeks and weeks just lying on a beach doing nothing, then yes, but that's not what a career break is at all. It's about getting new skills, having new experiences, so that when he goes back to his old, if he goes to his old job, or if he gets a new job in the same industry, or if he has a complete career change, after his career break, if he spent it wisely, learning or working or volunteering or whatever it might be, he's going to have tons and tons of skills to bring to his new job. And not only that, he will have on his CV, he'll be one of the people who's had the initiative and the courage to get up and do something different, which not everybody has. So when he's back in the workforce, he's going to have, he might have some specific skills like speaking a specific language, which could help in certain jobs. He might have what we call soft skills, things like facing challenges, solving problems, teamwork, leadership, all of those things that can help you get a new job or get a promotion. We know people who've taken a career break and walked straight into promotion when they came back, just because of the skills that they've learnt while they've been away. And the other thing I'd like to add, he says he works in marketing and PR. I meet quite a lot of people in those industries who think that there's nothing for them in, say, volunteering, but a lot of projects actually need people with marketing experience, things like raising awareness for AIDS projects or educating people about conservation or whatever. Those are really useful skills that a lot of projects can use around the world. So good luck to Jack, and I hope he lets us know how he gets on, because I'd be really interested to see where his plans and his ideas take him.
Absolutely. Well, Jack, yes, please keep in touch, and we look forward to hearing about it. I think it's interesting your point about maybe documenting some of your travels, not just for your CV, but maybe in a public blog. And then also this concept that actually a career break, it's not just about gaining time spent in a role on a CV. It's actually about building character, which can then last you in life, and you can go back to an employer standing a bit taller with a different perspective on the challenges at hand. And Rachel also mentioned their languages, and we've got a question from Cynthia, and Cynthia would like to know, she says, when house sitting, how do you deal with the language barriers if you don't speak the local language? Now, Nat and Jodie, you've been all over the world. How do you deal with language? Obviously, you speak English, which is probably an advantage. But have you racked up a list of local languages that you know how to ask for wine and cheese and chocolate?
That's about the limit. That's right. About all we can ask for. No, we just speak English. We haven't actually. I think coming from Australia, it's unusual to learn other languages.
Right.
So why do I need to learn this? Nobody bothers to keep it going. So no, we don't speak any other language. So it really is fumble our way through and just pick up words where we can. But it's amazing how you can connect with people just through other means, like sign language or pointing to things, or I don't know, just that energetic connection seems to, for some reason, get us through every time.
And you must have become a bit of a master at dealing with the pets. I guess they don't speak English necessarily, but it's a lot about how you deal with them.
They don't speak English. They don't even understand English, some of them.
We actually did have to learn some Dutch when we were in Peru, which was hilarious, because the girls or the dogs were Dutch owned, but they also understood a bit of Spanish. So English was literally the third on their list. Right. So when we go for a walk, it'd be like, La Janan, and then we'd be, be saying like, Baños, like we'd be speaking Dutch and Spanish to the pets. It's hilarious. We had our list.
And Rachel, could you just tell us a little bit more about the teaching English as a foreign language? You say often, yes, focus on English, but actually there's a whole qualification to be gained there as well.
Yes, that's right. There are lots of ways you can do the qualification. You can do it online. You can do weekend and evening courses to fit around your day job, or you can do an intensive course in a month. Some courses include teaching practice, and not all the courses are here in the UK either. You can actually go to, say, Thailand and do your course there, and then obviously you can go straight into a job there or in the region as well. And it's a great way to, to get a skill that you can take all around the world, to any country that needs that needs English teachers. And some people are a little bit put off because they don't really like kids and they don't want to work with kids. But there are a lot of opportunities for people who want to learn business English, particularly in China and Japan. So they need people to go there and teach them. It's a bit of a different kind of job, but it's still, obviously, it's very worthwhile, and it's a great way to earn as you travel.
Right, great. We've just had a few questions as well from people around the world about some of the possible security issues when you allow somebody into your home. It can be something that people are concerned about, particularly when they start out on this process. I'm going to put these to Lamia, and then we've got any additional observations from the rest of the panel. So we've got, Lamia, we have Lynn, who's from Murcia in Spain, and she's just wondering about the best practices around references. She's saying, are references and police checks worth the paper they're written on? So how actually can you be confident that you're providing the correct information to a homeowner, and how can we have confidence in that? Do we know from people's past house sitting, can that improve over time? And there's also a question about financial compensation from a homeowner if anything goes wrong. For instance, Kate in Victoria is slightly concerned because she has low blood sugar, and she says that she depends on sweets to keep her sugar levels up, but she was a little bit worried if the dogs got into food. So are there ways to kind of mesh things with the homeowner so things like that don't go wrong, and in fact, if they do, how to unravel them afterwards? So just a few questions on trust for you, Lamia.
Well, I would say that as a house sitter and a homeowner myself, the paperwork is important. It's part of the process of familiarization. So I would say definitely get references, professional and personal. I think it's advisable to get police checks, but it's not critical. And I think from a homeowner's perspective, it shows that the sitter has shown due diligence. They have made an effort to present themselves in every possible light. The other thing that I do is I say, why not get friendly on Facebook or Twitter or some other social media? Because then again, they can build confidence, build awareness of you, your personality,
right.
The network of people you know. It's just part of that familiarization process, which can help build trust. Trust is the most important thing here, and there are various ways you can build trust. The other things you can do is start asking them questions ahead of time, questions about the home, the responsibilities, the routines, the pets. One of the things that's really, really useful is to document all of those issues and routines. We always recommend that people use an agreement, because if you go through the process of preparing an agreement together, it means that you have gone through the challenges and the opportunities together, and you have a joint understanding. And so we actually have some special documents prepared by lawyers in each country, which will allow you to use that as a formal agreement between you. But of course, the most important thing is that you build familiarization and trust. That's the most important thing. Right.
And we've got a live reference here, so this is going to be helpful, hopefully, from Tracy. So Tracy says that Jodie and Nat, Jodie and Nat house sat for me and looked after my cat Tiggs in London. They were fantastic.
Tracy and Tiggs.
Exclamation mark. I highly recommend them and house sitting like this as a concept. So some good live references for you there, Jodie. And Jodie, I do believe that you also have tried to formalise some of this experience that you've got into a HouseSitting Academy. Is that right?
Well, if I could just introduce Nat on this one, because the reason why we ended up in Dubai is Nat is actually a former Australian Federal Police agent. She gave up that career in early 2004. So yes, it's fantastic on our resume to have, a federal agent as applying for house sits. But when we actually got to Dubai, her job there was to teach the best practices for the actual Dubai police, Abu Dhabi police, border protection, etc., etc. Like all these different courses were being developed all the time. So it was through that whole experience that we sort of came up with this idea of creating a best practices program. And if Nat will allow me, or she'll do it herself, we might even give you our one key secret that we have to exactly that issue you were talking about with the trust, and how we found a really good workaround for that in building your profile. No, you've got to start with your...
I think the key thing for us has been using our intuition, and also connecting with homeowners and encouraging them to be intuitive with that process as well. To really trust that gut. I mean, as Lamia said, you can have all the documents and the references and things like that, but at the end of the day, and I'm sure Tracy, who's now listening to this, will also agree, that it comes down to a feeling.
Yeah.
Do you connect with the person or not? And the best way to do that is a Skype call. So we go through the process of applying. As house sitters, we apply. The person, the homeowner, then looks at our profile if they're interested. And then we have a video, as Jodie said, which is one of our other key things, is that even before they speak with us, they've already connected. They already feel like they know us. So then when we get to the Skype call, it's like talking to an old friend almost. They've met us before. So we're just having a chat. And I think for a homeowner, one of the key things is probably listening to the questions from the house sitter. The house sitter will give away whether they know a lot about house sitting or not by the questions they ask. So a lot of house sitters will sit back and just let the homeowner ask all the questions, but a good house sitter will ask a lot of questions about the house, about the pets, about what's involved, and sit there and really decide whether it's for them or not. So there's that two-way street. It's the homeowner deciding if the house sitter's right, but the house sitter needs to really admit to themselves, is this going to really suit my needs? Does the dates fit? Do the transport costs fit? All these different things, pet requirements, but do I feel like I've come home to this house? And, you know, if you really can settle into a home, then you will run that house like an owner does.
And I believe we're talking about different ways of showing trust. What you've launched as the HouseSitting Academy, it's housesittingacademy.com, I believe. It's some kind of badge that can go on people's profile photos, on people's profiles on a site like House Sit Match, to show that they are, in fact, made some kind of commitment to the process. How does that work?
Yeah, well, it actually, the concept, other than Nat's background in the teaching, like the teaching of best practices, actually also came from some of our transition work, some of our career break work, like in moving into this as starting as a new business, was to do some online consulting and services. So to add to what Rachel was mentioning there before for Jack, we've used services like Google Helpouts, Clarity.fm, Odesk, etc. And even a house that we were talking to the other day, she was actually a career or human resources advisor, and she now just works through Odesk.com. So she can still maintain her ability and her credibility through online consulting. She's house sitting, you know, all around the place. So with the Academy badge, it came from some work I was doing in writing press releases. And we found a good friend of ours has actually been in the media game for 25 years. She's in Dublin, and she was saying that every single piece of media that she's ever appeared on, she's kept since she was 14 years old. And she was actually the last person to ever interview Mother Teresa, just before she died as well. So she's got like a really big kind of media background. And we just started asking her, it's like, okay, if these press releases are actually hitting onto major network websites like ABC, NBC, CBS and Fox, are we able to say that we've been cited, or is the person who's been cited on those sites able to use those logos for that added credibility? And she said, absolutely, you've been cited on the site, it's all archived, etc. So taking that concept and saying, well, okay, if that concept of using a network badge to sort of say, well, yeah, I've been cited on a big brand, was sort of saying, well, how does it get perceived by the person seeing that? So if you've got a badge on your profile that says, I'm a HouseSitting Academy member, then that instant interaction from who's viewing it is like, well, you're going to be taken seriously. We're going to look at you a little bit more seriously as being an Academy member. without sort of promoting too much around the House-Sitting Academy, I do want to give away something that we feel is really, really important, because we've helped so many people so far with this element, is if homeowners are actually looking through, say, House-Sit Match and looking at the different profiles of people, we'll find that there's a lot of house sitters who will say that they are the most responsible, caring, trustworthy person. But everybody, that's the most traditional thing to say. So bringing in a little bit of marketing psychology, which is adding to all these elements of the media, the badges, how do you stand out? We have found that it's the mentioning your former career. People will make a judgment not on you being the most caring, trustworthy, responsible person, but if you've been a marketing executive, or if you've been a babysitter or a nanny, like, put that career into your headline, because that's what people are ultimately looking at to say, well, it's a bit like us. I mean, okay, I've got Easy Street. As a former resort manager, I've got a ex-Federal Australian police agent here. So maybe it's Nat who's getting our jobs for us all the time. I don't know. But
maybe. So, yeah, he keeps the animals and the house sitters in check. So it's about building up a kind of multiple elements of your personality, trying to and then reflect some of that in your online profiles. But just Rachel, I'd like maybe your reflections on this, because I think we've got some really innovative ideas here about how to improve and put a badge and some sign of commitment on your online profile, improve that. But we've just had a question, Rachel, from Kelly. She's just slightly concerned that this TESL certificate, she's calling it, this is about teaching English. She's saying that what happens, because not all schools will necessarily hire you if you've done this TESL certificate online. She used to be a teacher herself, and she's gone around the Soviet Union and had great fun there, as it then was. So how do you think, Rachel, you go about getting the right online qualifications, and then are there some things you need to do offline in the real world as well?
Well, just to clarify, when Kelly's talking about TESL, that's a synonym. TEFL is teaching English as the foreign language, and TESL is teaching English as a second language, and those terms are used interchangeably. Kelly makes a really good point here, and it's a wider point about the general planning of career breaks. You must check what your qualification does entitle you to before you take it, whether it's an online qualification that's not going to get you into a particular school or a particular country or a particular area that you want to go to, because some are fine, but some are more restrictive. If you want one that's going to take you literally anywhere, you obviously need to check that before you sign up to the course, before you hand over your money, that this is a qualification that is going to be useful to you, and it's what you need. And I think doing your research online is a really good way to do that. And also you can ask to speak to former students and see how they've done it, because Kelly, she says she's been an ESL teacher, English as a second language teacher in Russia, and I've never done TEFL, and so the feedback we're getting from people like Kelly, from people who have actually gone out there and done it, is really useful. So thank you, Kelly.
All right. Well, thanks indeed. And we've also got a question, maybe for Lamia, initially from Judith. Judith is in Cheshire in the UK, and again, this is on some. She's got a couple of questions. One is that Judith says her trip is focused on her ailing parents, and she may have to cancel at the last minute. And what happens if her dates change, or she no longer needs to go? So I guess there's a question there. If something goes wrong when the plan changes, can a network like yours at HouseSitting.match jump in at the last minute and help out to provide an alternative? And then Judith's other question, Judith says, should she pay her house sitters? I want them to know that I take this assignment seriously, but they are also getting free accommodation. So what should she do there? Any advice? So what are the sort of best practices, do you think, Lamia?
I think in terms of whether or not she cancels her trip, well, things change, and life is quite variable. So you need to discuss those options with the sitters so that they understand that there is a chance that things may change. Sometimes people have an extra room in the house where they can accommodate the sitters if they've traveled and the whole thing has happened too quickly. And I think that would be the good best practice to do, because they've paid for the trip. Secondly, hopefully it's a point that's been discussed in the agreement. And so you have an understanding of the plan A and the plan B.
Right.
what I also advise house sitters is take out the extra insurance in case for your travel. In case a change happens that is unexpected, you may be able to get your money back or redirect your flight or train ticket. It really is worth that extra 10 or 15 pounds in terms of the insurance. So that's what I would advise. Talk about it beforehand, make the plan A and the plan B arrangements, and actually be a good host. Invite them to stay if it's all too late. I think that would be the nice thing to do.
Yeah. And also, I've heard that sometimes there's a bit of a transition period. Is that right? So you're about to leave as a homeowner, but you want to just get to know these people, check they are for real first. And do you recommend the 1 or 2 day crossover?
Oh, absolutely. I always have at least 2 days because, it just means that you have a chance to go through everything. They can physically experience the nooks and crannies in your home in case something doesn't quite work the way it's supposed to. Every home has those. And also pets. It's so important to get to know the pets beforehand. And if they're traveling from abroad, there's very little chance to do so. So a couple of days overlapping is the best way to do that.
And is that your experience, Nat and Jodie? Do you ever get to a house and do you actually get to know the owner as well before you're left with the property?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as a house, coming from the house sitting point of view, it's very important. You can read a document as much as you like, but at the end of the day, being on the ground and actually being shown through everything, the watering system, how the pool works, how the vacuum works, just the simplest of things that we find a homeowner takes for granted because they do it all the time. As a new person coming in, it's not natural for you to be doing some of these things. So we really do need to be, some very quirky things at times in people's houses. So you really need to be taken through those things. And I think things like if there's dog parks or dog walks that they particularly go on, if there's a vet they go to, actually drive your house sitter there so they can see it. In an emergency, you don't want to be fumbling through a map trying to find the nearest vet. If you know exactly where it is, then that's great. Show them the shops, take them down to the grocery store, to the butcher, to wherever, your favourite beach. I think they're the things that help a house sitter settle in a lot quicker and feel like you're at home and that they feel, I guess, more confident that you can take over the responsibilities because you've actually been shown everything that you need to. And the other thing that came up for me too as a house sitter, just make sure that if you're travelling a long distance and you feel like you'll have jet lag, make sure you take that into account because we've actually got to house sits before where we've been absolutely trashed because we've been travelling for like 48 hours. And then you're expected to get straight into the house sit. So it's certainly something that we've learnt is, even if you don't stay at the person's house, stay somewhere nearby for a day or two to have that sleep that you need so you can be fresh to start the house.
And most of that came from one of our most bizarre experiences, which was actually, it really couldn't be avoided because we were trying to save money as well, but the homeowner was 4 hours drive away from the airport. Now, she needed to get to the airport and we needed to get from the airport, so her friend did the drop-off pickup. We still hadn't actually met her. When we spoke on Skype, we only actually talked. We didn't do the video because we didn't. She was elderly and she didn't want to get on the video. And we got to her home with 3 dogs and 1 cat right on dusk. So having to fumble around with the light switches and get the key because the neighbours dropped us off. Get the keys, walk in and read this piece of paper that said, okay, the white one's Coco, the black one's Betsy, and the brown one's Coco. Hi guys, we're here to look after the place.
Good. Well, it sounds like it all worked out in the end. And then we're running a little bit short of time now. We've got about 3 or 4 minutes left, so we'll try and begin to wrap up. So the other question from Judith then, from Chesham in the UK, was just, should you ever pay your house sitters as a sign of good faith or that you take it seriously? Obviously, there is the quid pro quo, the accommodation. You've done quite a few of these now. Have you ever been paid?
Yes, we have. But there have been admittedly for a B&B and a self-contained accommodation.
But we've also accepted gifts as well. One of our recent house sits in upstate New York, we didn't have any extra duties other than look after the 2 dogs, and they gifted us some cash at the end, which was very much appreciated heading into New York City. And they pretty much said, go and have a good time. And sometimes we've had people just take us out for dinner at the end. Just do what you feel. There's no obligation. It's not always expected. But if there is extra duties involved, then definitely clear that up in your agreement at the start, so that you're not feeling any kind of angst throughout the house.
Right, thanks. And then Rachel, so the payment is mentioned here. So I think house sitting, we've presented it today as a fantastic way sometimes to save money. If you are looking for a secondary source of income, you've also mentioned teaching English as a foreign language. Have you any other kind of top line suggestions on how to make money during these career breaks?
Well, there's temporary work that you can do on a working holiday visa. There's seasonal work that you can do in ski resorts or summer resorts, etc. And one way of actually saving money for your career break, which a lot of people miss, is actually if you're going away for a long period of time, there's going to be quite a lot of money owed to you from things that you tend to pay annually. When I went on my career break, I got a council tax rebate, I got money off my mobile phone contract. There are loads of little bits and pieces that you just don't think about. There's things like car tax, and the biggest one is your income tax, because it normally gets paid. It's normally assumed that you're going to be working for the whole year, and if you don't, you can get some money back. And without that, you can still get a few £100 depending on when you are in the year where you leave. And with the income tax rebate, it can go into another few £100, so it's really worth doing. That's quite a lot of extra money for your trip.
Right, so you save some money beforehand, you're smart when you're online. And I believe, Lamia, you're just going to remind us before we close of a way to save some money today and gain a load of expertise. This is a chance to not just get a premium or value membership to HouseSit Match, it's also to have an opportunity as soon as it goes live to access the HouseSitting Academy for 50% off the usual cost. So would you just like to take us through how that works, please, Lamia?
Absolutely. Well, in the first instance, this is the time to sign up for HouseSit Match with a 20% off coupon, which we'll be typing up shortly on the side, webinar-20. That will give you 20% off any of the paid registrations. And then as soon as the HouseSitting Academy goes live, we'll be writing a blog about it. There'll be a special voucher where you'll actually be able to get it for 50% off the actual price. And there you'll be able to benefit from Nat and Jodie's personal experience, and very rich experiences too, of house sitting like professionals for a whole year.
Great, so there's a lot of experience. Thank you to all of our panellists. Just to remind you then of who they are, where you can find out more. We've got Rachel Morgan-Trimmer, Director of the Career Break site, and some really useful information and some great tips there on how to chase up the tax man and get that surprise check back. I think that's a great one. That's www.thecareerbreaksite.com. Thank you to Nat and Jodie from Barbados today. We hope you'll join us again. We can only dream of where it might be next time. So they're at www.housesittingacademy.com. Where's your next trip? Where are you off to next?
We've got Sacred Valley of Peru, which is
Peru.
a return house sit for a neighbour.
Sounds good to me. And then from HouseSitMatch.com, it was Lamia Walker. Thank you very much, Lamia. And to remind you then of that coupon code, it is webinar-20. Stick that in your HouseSit Match basket. And Lamia, as you've seen, is a very credible person, and she is able at the premium levels of membership to give some real bespoke consultation and help, as you can get from Nat and Jodie. If you want to have any further questions, you can contact me on Twitter. I'm at Thomas Mason, all one word, and I'll happily channel it to our panel members. Thanks very much for coming today. There will be a replay of today's webinar going up shortly on YouTube. That coupon code again, it's webinar-20. I'd do a quick wave goodbye from all of our panelists. You've been absolutely fantastic. I'll let you get back to the pool if it's Nat and Jodie. If it's Rachel, I'll let you get back to Manchester where it's an evening where there's no rain, so she can enjoy that too. All right, thank you very much, everybody. Goodbye, and thanks all of you for all of your questions and for joining us today.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.